I'm Michael W. Smith. I'm an alcoholic. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to come. And Miss Bell, I hope you can hear me back there. In my home group, nobody ever has a problem hearing me. And I appreciate Donnie for giving me the lay of the land. And it looks like I lucked out and came on the right night because it's birthday night and everybody comes out. And I saw some cake and stuff. And that sounds exciting. Whenever I'm asked to talk, I always think about how when I hear a lot of people talk, in my tenure here, I've heard a lot of people, they'll talk about all these war stories for a whole hour, and then it's 5 till, and by the way, I'm in recovery, and y'all have a nice night, and I vowed a long time ago, I don't do that. So I don't talk about any of that. Qualification can be done without all of that. Plus, sometimes you get into these one-upmanships in a meeting. People be bragging over stories they did, and somebody else wants to one-up them, the next person that shares. And I don't know what that competition is, but thank God these steps were designed to save me, like it says in the 12 and 12, the last 10 or 15 years of hard drinking. And as our book talks about on 33, to be gravely affected, one does not have to drink the quantities or go down as far as some of us have. So my story probably isn't as sordid or exciting as some, but there was a couple of questions that I had to ask myself honestly, and I will talk about those briefly. But before I get into what I'm going to talk about, I'm not used to sitting, and I have to walk around, so that's in the way. I need me some space. I'm good. So once I get excited, I start walking back and forth and all kinds of stuff. This is an Altoid, by the way. I always put it in my mouth like this. I'll tell you a story. I put it in my mouth like this before I put it in my mouth to suck on it. Because one of the times, it was a girl 10, 15 years ago told me I had bad breath, so I've had Altoids ever since. So you women have power to change the lives of a male in just a few simple words. So anyway, I had this Altoid. I put it in my mouth. And somebody come up to me after the meeting like they wanted to fight. I didn't understand what was going on. Didn't even know it had anything to do about the Altoids. You triggered me. You shouldn't be taking pills in a meeting. And I thought, really, they're on their way out anyway if an Altoid is triggering them in a meeting. But what I decided to do ever since then was I put it in my mouth for a minute and hold it up for whoever wants to see. And then I put it in my mouth like this is actually. So it's sort of like a get back, but it's been long enough. But I still got to put it in my lip for a minute. So that's when I did it as a habit. But anyway, I want to get into the talk. I've already digressed a few minutes and we're starting a little late. What we find is that we've had very little time together. Very little time together. Time flies when you're having fun. And the one thing that I hope that happens tonight is having fun. I see this picture over here, Alcoholics number 3, and how the Bill and Bob were laughing. And he goes, damn little to laugh about, I can see. But I do insist on enjoying life. And like it says on 132, if newcomers could see no joy in our existence, they wouldn't want it. Why shouldn't we laugh? We've recovered and been given the power to help others. But we're not going to get into the seething cauldron of debate of recovered and recovering. I'm just saying what it said, and the word laughter came to my mind, so that page obviously came to my mind. I want to talk about a little joke before, because what I was taught to do is always tell something that's funny, even though I got a little bit of laugh with the Altoid. I hope this does the trick a little bit more, and I'm going to move on into what I want to talk about. There's this guy that's doing his first solo parachute jump, okay? And I'm not talking about this tandem business. He's already done all that. He's been trained, like we are in AA. We're in training here. And that's why I keep coming to meetings, so I can stay trained. So then in that moment of need, I can recall what I need to do, just like in the military. So he's been trained. He's fixing to do his first solo parachute jump. So he jumps out, looks at his little whatever that is. I've never done it. I'm not going to do it because I like in the book where it says, we like our feet firmly planted on the ground. That's where our fellow travelers are. I think I read that somewhere. I'm never going to do the parachute, but it's cool. But this guy was doing it. He's fixing to jump out. He's looking at his little altimeter It tells him it's time to pull the ripcord. So he pulls the ripcord and nothing happens. Well, he doesn't panic because why? He's been to enough meetings. He's done his training. He knows what he's supposed to do. There's a reserve chute. So he calmly pulls the reserve chute and nothing happens. Okay, now we got real problems. 7 meetings a week ain't going to save this guy, okay? That reminds me of a man that was Happy Jack, we called him. He died of throat cancer, sober, was always in a bunch of meetings. He always had a great outlook on life. And he said something in a meeting that I still say this day, and it has to do with when I said 7 meetings, made me think of it. As old-timers, we obviously have learned how to live sober for a while, and hell, I might not need 2 meetings a day. And he said that. He goes, I don't need but 1 meeting a week, but I go to 14 because I don't know which one that is. I like that. Because you never know what meeting you're going to hear, because I doubt somebody's going to quote a page that I don't already know. Been around long enough. You've heard all the topics. But somebody's going to say something that I can get. And that's why I keep showing up and keep my training. So this guy's training has pulled off. He's pulled both wrist cords, but he's got a problem. So he passes a guy going the other way, just as fast as he's going. Okay? Now you got to suspend disbelief just for a minute that they're able to have a short conversation as they pass. So he's going this way, the other guy's going this way, and they meet for a second and they speak. And he goes, hey man, do you know anything about parachutes? And the other guy says, no man. Do you know anything about lighting gas stoves? That's what I was looking for. All right, now we can have some fun. This bell didn't laugh. I didn't speak loud enough. I need to turn it up. It's all good. All right, now I talked about how I don't like to talk about war stories, but and a lot of times I'll hear people talk about their childhood, and it has nothing to do with why we're here, because you don't care what city or I was born in or whether or not my dad had a sailboat. But the thing about it is that there are 2 things about my childhood that are directly applicable to this way of life. One of them is that I used to collect these stickers when I was a kid. We called them Wacky Pack stickers. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it could be baseball cards or whatever it is. It's the things you bought, the stickers, and it always had a piece of Topps bubble gum in it. And all them stickers, always, no matter what kind of sticker it was, in the bottom right-hand corner it said 57 of 200, whatever the whole set was. There was a set of them, and that card was that number of the set. And if you kept coming back long enough, you'd get the whole set. Just like these chips, you get all your colors, then you get the medallion, and then a lot of people, I guess, consider that to be, I got the whole set, let me go drink or something. I don't know. I've seen a lot of people do it. But, we're not going to do that today. But, so when I was a kid, I'd see that I had the set, and I was absolutely obsessed with having the entire set. I'd have 15 of one card, but I was going to keep buying them until I had that whole set. I was absolutely addicted to having the set of cards, and once I would get it, all would be right with the world for about 5 minutes. And then I'd be on to the next set. And I remember that being a reality of my childhood, that I had an addictive personality from the very beginning. And what I find with these steps, and it's the same way, is I find that alcohol solved the problem that I had. It didn't cause it. I had fear, selfish, self-seeking, and dishonesty that, alcohol seemed to remedy for a while. It enhanced it eventually. But that's why I find when I made the list in the 4-step of people, institutions, and principles with whom we were angry, as it talks about on 64, and I always tell people this because sponsees want to just list the names they're angry at now. Oh, I'm not really angry at anybody. I've gotten over it all. Wrong answer. Oh, well, I've only got a few because I'm just the ones I'm angry at now. Well, it says were. So I'll go back in my life, even before I drank, and list names. And I find that I was selfish and self-centered and driven by fear even before I took a drink. The other thing about my childhood is that I'm like Dr. Bob. Dr. Bob's Nightmare, he talks about that he was an only child, and I'm an only child. He said, I was an only child. It engendered the selfishness that played such an integral part in bringing about my alcoholism. So that's bearing on what we deal with here, because that's from my childhood and has direct bearing. So what does it mean? It means, well, I could say, well, I was an only child, so I came by my selfishness honestly, so that's okay. Not really. I mean, I could try a cop-out like that, but that's not really how it works. What the steps have told me is I need to take the hand I've dealt and deal with it. You know, I could find many cop-outs. One I remember, and I don't have it down here to talk about, but one time I was in my garage and somebody mentioned the military. Well, I did. I mentioned it. My dad was in the military. He was a military dad. I tried that on for size, what that was like. I still have short hairs because of it, I mean, it's high and tight and everything has to be the way it is. So we're in the garage working on something because he used to make me sit with him while he worked on stuff, I guess to show me how to work on things. So when I was an adult, I could work on things. So now I can work on anything, which is good. But I guess I knocked over the wrong tool or did something because he got really mad. And when he got really mad, he got really calm, just like this. And he would say things that would cut you in half in about 1 second. And he said, son, and I remember it to this day, exactly where I was laying on the floor, where we were in the garage. You know, those kind of memories where it's like, boom, it's in there and it ain't coming out, no matter how much alcohol you drink. He said, son, don't you know you fuck up more than you fix? I think I carried that for the next quarter century. So the reason I told that is because, look, I could have took that and said, yeah, see, I fuck up more than I fix. I can be an idiot and prove my dad right. Or I can try to do the opposite. So I spent a lifetime in academia and became a lawyer and a CPA, and I have 30 letters after my name to prove my dad wrong that I don't fuck up more than I fix. So it's amazing how things from childhood, maybe a simple word, can shape the course of a life. Just like the girl who said I had bad breath makes me carry Altoid. But this is much more serious. And I say that in jest. But what can happen as a child can be powerful. But the reason I want to say this is I'm not consigned to live that out. Whether my dad was an alcoholic or a drunk or beat my mom's ass, which none of that happened, by the way. But I've seen others that in my travels, that it has happened to. And the message that I like to carry is that we're not consigned to live that legacy out. The steps give me an opportunity to change. The steps give me an opportunity, maybe for the first time in my life, to have a say in the course of my life. And that's good news, because the steps talk about faith without works is dead. And the truth about it is God's going to do for me what I can't do for myself, but He's not going to do for me what I can. And I think that's important, the duty that we have in recovery. I want to move on into the qualification. It's the story I call Hot Sand. It was also when I was a kid. I was in Fort Walton Beach is where I lived. Time's already getting away from me. But that's okay. We're going to make this happen. I was in Fort Walton Beach where I used to live. My dad was in Eglin Air Force Base. He fixed Phantom jets in Thailand. And I was a little kid, and the beach was huge, and it was very hot. And if you can picture some sand so hot, you ever walked on the sand, you said, man, this is too hot. I can't keep walking on this. This is no good. So I remember being this kid, I'm walking on the sand, and I'm at the Rubicon, which is the point of no return. You go. It's just as far to go to the end as it is to come back. And it got so hot that I didn't know what to do. And I guess I had enough sense to know if you lay down on it, it's going to be hot all over and not just on your feet. So it was so hot. What did I do? I took my bathing suit off and threw it on the sand and stood on it. Well, that solved one problem, but it created another. people all around. Of course. Now, why am I telling this story? Not to try to get a laugh and you picture me naked as a child. No. The reason I'm talking about it is to qualify why I always went back to drinking after I would sing the Alcoholics National Anthem, I'll Never Do It Again. What happened on that sand? It was so hot. All thoughts of rational thinking were pushed aside for what I had to do to get some relief. Right? I had to get relief. And that's what happened when I sing the Alcoholics National Anthem. In a week or a month, the reason it talks about on 24, for reasons yet obscure, lost the power of choice and drink, bringing to my mind consciousness, pain and suffering a week or a month ago, I was without defense against the first drink, is because I would get to a point to where life would get too hot, I guess, and I would need some relief and forget how much I meant it when I swore off before, a week or a month ago. I remember swearing off after I got my second DUI, and some friend in a month said, hey, they're playing so-and-so at the whatchamacallit, and they got dollar import. I said, well, that's cool, but I'm going to have water. Well, somewhere in the middle of all that, I got me one, and the next thing I remember, I'm stumbling through the bar begging at 2 a.m, asking somebody for some change because I want to get that last pitcher of beer because the lights are on. Do you know what I mean? They turn the lights on. That means you better go get it. And what was so weird about when I was drinking is if you tried to make me stop and I wasn't ready, which was never, I would get mad. If they were making me stop drinking and I wasn't through, I would get mad. And one time I broke in a house to get some more money to get some solid alcohol. Do you know what I'm saying? So some of the things that we did in the past, I did to get alcohol in solid and liquid form. One of those, at least that one, I had to go make amends for. I had to go back to that dude, right, that I broke in his house. My sponsor's in the car. I had to do the script for the 9th step. I'm working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I won't be able to stop drinking till I clean up the wreckage of the past. I was selfish, dishonest, and inconsiderate, and I wasn't thinking of your feelings when I broke in your house and stole money from you, and here's the money that I took from you. The script has to be the same, or I'm going to fall into one of the 3 traps, which is, 1, I'm going to say I'm sorry, and they're going to say I know. 2, I'm going to say, but I was drunk, dog. I wouldn't have done you that way. That means I'm blaming it on the alcohol. The book talks about we make no bones about our drinking. And 3, I'm going to sit there long enough, and eventually I'm going to go, hey, I know I'm sorry, but you were an asshole too. Let's talk about what you did. So none of those work out well. So that's why the script works out well. But the reason I digressed, which I did, which I will get back on track, was saying that at some point life got hot. Now, how does life get hot for me? The reason that I kept going back, and I don't have them in front of me, because usually when I do a meeting, they have the promises. Somebody reads the promises, and they're always on the little laminated page. If somebody has them within arm's reach, but I don't really need to have it. The reason I went back is because my computer is hardwired whenever I push the button to go through a certain routine. And we all know what it is. The little Windows logo comes up. And it does the same thing that it's programmed to do every single time. Well, the reason that I kept going back is because there was something that alcohol did for me. Now, I've got a disease that wants me to remember what alcohol did for me, not what it did to me. Right? Okay? So what it did for me was in those promises. Because when I took a drink of alcohol, I knew a new freedom and a new happiness. When I took a drink of alcohol, here it is right here. This is good. When I took a drink of alcohol, I was going to know I knew a new freedom and a new happiness. When I got loaded, I didn't regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. When I got drunk, I comprehended the word serenity and I knew peace. When I got drunk, no matter how far down the scale I had gone, I could see how my experience could benefit others. Yeah, it is. Yeah. When I got drunk, that feeling of uselessness and self-pity disappeared. When I got drunk, my whole attitude and outlook upon life changed. Yeah. When I got drunk, fear of people and of economic insecurity left me. I suddenly realized that alcohol in solid or liquid form was doing for me what I could not do for myself. That's why I kept going back. Because I was getting the promises from that. And it remembered, like the first page of A Vision for You, conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination. Ding for the holidays. Roast chestnuts for the holidays. Anybody, you got to be old to remember that commercial. But I've never seen a roasted chestnut. I made myself believe stuff that wasn't even true. I made myself believe it was better than it actually was. And if I tell myself enough times the story, I'll start believing it. When the truth of the matter is, it wasn't that good. It wasn't. And sometimes even today, I think, my life's not as exciting or as fun sometimes. Well, I about had all the fun I could stand. And the thing I think that the steps really has shown me is the value of satisfactory and reasonableness. Because I've heard people misquote the book. It goes, well, like the book says, the best years of our existence lie ahead. But that's not what it says, is it? It says the most satisfactory years of our existence lie ahead. And the ability to accept and be okay with what I've got and not always be upset about what I don't is a major change that this program has given me. Oh yeah, I could go get me a brand new Harley right now, but I got a Yamaha 650 that is tricked out, but it's paid for. See? So the thing about what this program has shown me is that I drank because life got too hot. When life got too hot, I looked for the promises, and my mind was just like that button. I pushed it, and I went and got alcohol because my mind remembered what it used to get. It wasn't conviviality, companionship, and colorful imagination, and nothing was reasonable. The other word that I got okay with was reasonableness. In the second stanza of the Serenity Prayer, some of you may know, it talks about, I want to be reasonably happy. Reinhold Niebuhr wrote the thing, by the way, the Serenity Prayer. In the second stanza of it, which we don't use, we just use the first stanza, it says, I want to be reasonably happy in this life so I can be supremely happy in the next. So the idea of satisfactory and reasonableness is something that the steps has taught me. Because if it wasn't the best, then screw it. That was the motto from before. But the reason I'm okay today, even though it may not be as exciting, and you hear sometimes it'll be said, my worst day sober is better than my best day drinking. Well, that's not true, and that's not what the book says. That comes from 42, where he says, my way of life in the past was by no means a bad one, but I wouldn't trade its best moments for the worst I have now. That's what it says. And that's more applicable and explains it a little bit better. I would have to trade everything in total, and I'm not willing to do it. Not that there would have been one moment back there that may have been really cool as hell. And there was. But in total, it's not worth trading everything for a pipe dream that probably never happened. So how can life get hot for me? And I'm going to tell you, this really explains it. And you're saying, well, because I drank because something bad didn't happen. I could have drank on a good day, but I still drank. It's about the greatest enemies, isn't it? What is my greatest enemies as an alcoholic? And this is something that I have to learn to deal with in recovery. And there's really no incantation, no Cliff's Notes that I can help a newcomer and say, look, you gotta forge forth and persevere through these things. And the greatest enemies are the feelings of life. Because I come in here, I'm used to have anesthetized every feeling I ever had. I thought I dealt with it, but I didn't. I came in, I'm not mad at anybody. Not true. It's just shoved so far down. Even our book talks about shoved so far down. I can't remember the quote. But these feelings I'm not used to feeling. And then I get off the sauce, and these feelings are coming up like gangbusters. Just regular, plain old little feelings. I'm not used to it. I get uncomfortable. I'm on the sand. I need relief. 145 in the book talks about the greatest enemies. It says the greatest enemies of us alcoholics are resentment, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear. That's not a complete list. A better list is earlier in the book, and I think it's 35, where it talks about sometimes I go out deliberately to get drunk, feeling myself justified by nervousness, worry, anger, depression, jealousy, the like. And of course, in the light of the havoc the drinking bout creates, it's insanely insufficient. But the thing about it is, that's the laundry list of the greatest enemies. Jealousy, envy, frustration, fear, nervousness, worry, anger, depression, jealousy, the like. That's the feelings. That's the greatest enemies. That's what my problem was that I wasn't used to dealing with, and why I'd always go back after I would sing the Alcoholics National Anthem, I'll never do it again, because it got too hot with them greatest enemies, and I wanted to blank that stuff out for a while. But what I do, I woke up with that problem and another. And I had to see this truth about myself, you know? I had to see this truth about myself that even though I came in when I was 22 years old, and obviously I'm not anymore, even though I still got it. I know I'm pretty, but I ain't as pretty as was when I got here. And I'll prove to you that I ain't as pretty as when I got here, because now I go talk to a girl, I think I'm macking and doing good, and they drop what's called the S-bomb on me. Does anybody know what that is? Something, something, sir. It's over. Get a new show. The Sopranos is over. When you hear that word, it is over, baby. So I'm getting a lot more sirs lately. At least in the last 10 years, but that's okay. I'm undaunted. It's going to be okay, Mike. Don't drink over it. No, but seriously, I remember when I got here, there I go again. I wondered if I had what it took, because somebody told me this story about the greatest enemies, which they didn't, because I came up with it later. But they say, man, what? I don't know if I have what it takes. I got a series of failures, right? I got a series of singing the Alcoholics National Anthem, I'll never do it again, and drinking again. I got a series of messing my life up. I don't know if I have what it takes. And I'm here to prove, if you're new, and I mean a newcomer could be somebody with less than a year. Yeah. But we know that Bill and Bob used to work the steps with him, and he worked on page 13. He evidently worked all the steps before he even left the hospital. I don't know if it may take a little bit longer than that. But what I'm saying is it's about quality, not quantity. Even though I got some years, if you're new, if you hit the ground running and work these steps, you can have what some old timers you may see, which I won't go into that. You may have what they have just from sheer fact of it's quality, not quantity. And 32 in the 12 and 12 talks about the answer to the riddle has to do with the quality of one's faith rather than its quantity. And I think that's perfectly applicable to this, what I'm talking about. So it can be done, but the thing about it is I may have this thought that I had, I don't know how if I have what it takes. And what's perfect with this is time's getting away from me, but we're making some progress. I hope I haven't talked too fast. Sometimes I talk fast. I've got all this information to get out, and I'll talk so fast and nobody's heard what I said because I talk like some kind of auctioneer. But I'm so sorry if that's happened. I hope I've made the points that I'm trying to make, because there's so much stuff. I could talk till 10 and it would still be cool. But the thing about it is, because I usually just get going after an hour. That's when I start pacing and it gets exciting. Because if I was able to go through all the steps, that would be fun. I consider that to be fun. That means like an AA egghead, you know what I'm saying? But I think that using the book as a textbook is very important. I think that using the book the way it was intended is exciting. And it can be so scary to newcomers because it's so thick and they don't realize most of that stories. It's just the first 164 pages. I'm willing to do whatever before I got here, and now you ask a sponsee to read the first 164. I said, hold on a minute, let's don't get too serious now. And that leads me into this joke that I want to tell that has everything to do with, do I have what it takes? Okay. There's this old joke by a guy named Richard Pryor, And he was a guy that was funny when I was a kid. That I used to listen to actual records of. I have actual records. I have a 45 single of Candyman by Sammy Davis Jr. in my closet. That's terrible. That's terrible. No wonder they say, sir. This is brutal. I'm getting upset. I'm out of here. I'm just kidding. No, but the thing about it is Richard Pryor told a joke. He's up on stage, and he always did it by himself. So he's up there. He's playing the part of a guy who's trying to get a job. All right? So he's also playing the guy who's looking at his resume. So he's standing there, weighing back and forth in his best drunken voice. I'm not going to try to duplicate it. But he's playing the guy at the desk, and he says, Mr. Pryor, I just don't know if you're what we're looking for. I don't know if you're responsible. I don't know if you're dependable. And Richard Pryor, in his best drunken voice, says, what do you mean I'm not dependable? For the last 5 years, I've had a $500 a day drug habit. I ain't missed a payment. All right? But I may have slipped up on the drug. I saw a couple old timers kind of turn their heads, but it's okay. The joke tells the story. And the story is, he was out there and he didn't miss a payment. What does that mean? Dr. Bob says it in different words, doesn't he? If I put half the zeal into this that I put into that, my Heavenly Father won't let me down. Now, the old term, 36 words, is zeal. Richard Pryor said he didn't miss a payment. What I talk about is it's the energy. The available reservoir of energy was there and utilized to not miss that payment. And we really know this is not actually about missing payment, because we were not known out there to make all them payments. Okay, we were known for not making payment. But the point is clear. I was willing to do what it took to get what I needed in solid or liquid form. And when I come in here, that same energy of reservoir of energy is available to be used. So if a newcomer says, I don't know if I have what it takes, that joke proves that every single person in here has what it takes. Because every person in here can get the idea of him saying that to the dude holding the resume. I did what I needed to do for the last 5 years to get what I needed to do. Don't tell me I'm not dependable, because it happened every day. Did it not happen every day? For some of us. I mean, maybe we didn't drink every day, but every day. That's the point I'm trying to make. So the joke itself holds the promise of the happiness that any newcomer has what it takes. Even our How It Works talks about rarely have we seen a person fail that thoroughly follows our path. You could also say thoroughly have we seen a person fail who rarely follows our path. Or more poignantly and more correctly, it's rarely have we seen someone thoroughly follow our path. That's a fact. Because I know it works. But I kid myself about values, right? I come in here having done God knows what, and then somebody asks me to read the book or make a list of people or let's go make an amends. And hold on a minute now. I don't know about all of that. See, I kid myself about values, and the book talks about it. We must not kid ourselves about values. I must mean business. And when my sponsor, he showed me a couple of things. He did. He started right off in the book, and I'll go through a couple of things just to let you know how, he used the book. He went to 95. He pointed in the book. It says, if he's interested in your solution, ask him to read the book in the interval. He said, this is why I'm asking you to read the first 164 pages. When can you be done? I said, tomorrow. He goes, see, that's the problem. You set yourself up to fail with unreasonable and unattainable goals. Let's set reasonable and attainable goals. How about a week? See, that's reasonable and that's attainable. What we build is a series of successes, not failures. to show ourselves that we can do it. We have to have some laurels, page 85, before I can rest on some laurels, right? I have to build some successes. So, okay, a week. So I read the book, I get back with him, and he said, see, now we're on page 96. It says, perhaps he's read this volume and he's willing to go through with the steps. You're making your second visit. And then he said, let me show you something else in the book. And he went to 76. It says, remember, it was agreed in the beginning that you're willing to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. And he said, are you willing to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol? And he made me shake on it. Because what good is remembering at step 9 and say, oh, we forgot to make the agreement. You see what I'm saying? So we made it in the beginning. And he showed me where the description was, which is doctor's opinion, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism. And that's going to make clear that I'm an alcoholic. And agnostics, the part of the book is going to make clear step 2. And he showed me every step of the way. And an interesting story about doctor's opinion, and you may find it, because I'm like a AA history buff nerd, that the word 12 is all about this thing. The word 12 is everywhere. And when Bill wrote the book, he wanted 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 promises. And there's a website called thejwalker.com. The bedevilments on 52 line up with the promises, and they cancel each other out one at a time. And they got this page on there. Go to that, thejwalker.com. You'll love it. It's a cool thing how it cancels out. 52 is the bedevilments, and the promises cancel each one of them out. But the reason I'm talking about it, 12 promises, 12 chapters of the book. And you're going, hold on, Mike. There's only 11 chapters in that book. Bill's story up to 11, vision for you. Look at the index. But there's the doctor's opinion sitting off in the front. And newcomers think, oh, that's some kind of preface. I don't have to read that. But the fact of the matter is that he designed it to be chapter 1 and have 12 chapters. And the reason 12 is around everything, because Bill was quoted as saying, if 12 is good enough for JC, it's good enough for us. So there was a grand design, but then they started voting on things. And they said, we don't want the doctor's story to be first. We want Bill's story to be first. And they shoved it forward and made Bill's story chapter 1. But the reason Doctor's Opinion was designed to be the first chapter was to give the entire book and its focus credibility. The doctor was willing to sign his entire life away and risk his entire profession to sign off on what we were trying to do here. Yeah. So the doctor's opinion is absolutely crucial. It's absolutely essential. And if you look at it this way, it'll be an exciting little exercise. And this dawned on me years later. The part on the page where it says the types of alcoholics are outside the scope of this book, but there's 5 types of alcoholics. The psychopath who's emotionally unstable, going on the wagon for keeps. There's the guy who thinks he's off of it for a while, and then he can safely do it. And those 5 types, if you look in the description, Bill's story, there is a solution, more about alcoholism. There's real life examples of each one of those 5. You got 25-year slipper man in a bottle. That's the guy who thought he could be off of. Switching his brand or his environment. Every one of them are in there, and it was designed that way. I find that to be exciting. Maybe I'm the only one. But the big book is exciting, and the reason I wanted to focus on the word mean business is because after he showed me, and we made our agreement, he took me to page 161 where it talks about no one has been too discredited or is sunk too low to be cordially welcomed if he means business. And he said, what does it mean if you don't get back to me in the week we've agreed? He said, you don't mean business and I don't have to work with you. And I thought that was a little harsh. But he showed me that I need to do my part. He's taken the time out to show me this stuff I couldn't possibly know. And then I don't want to do it. So all of a sudden, he challenged me to mean business. And then he showed me on 96, it says, if God don't want what you have, don't waste your time on it. So, I'm just saying that the book is replete with instructions and promises. And it says what will happen if I don't do things as well. So what I wanted to talk about next is, after meaning business, is I want to talk about my first beach trip and something about attain, maintain. Because there's all these recovery first that I have to do in recovery. You notice I hadn't talked about any war stories, but we've talked about everything. There's absolutely no doubt. because war stories have zero value to me. They have zero. As a matter of fact, Bill W. was quoted as saying, back when he could run AA and he had control, he said, and this is a quote, "There was very little talk in meetings of drunk stories in those days. Frankly, it was nobody's business. It was between you and your sponsor. We made everybody talk about recovery in meetings because in doing so, we gave ourselves something to live up to." There's something to that. See, because it's easy to give myself something to live down to. Oh, I'm supposed to want to drink and can't think. My mind is this terrible place to go. And like a guy with 20 years when I'm one of my first meetings, I'm the same sick, selfish son of a bitch as the first day I walked in, and I still don't know anything. I thought that was shocking. And I was like, well, thanks for saving me the trouble, because that's how I feel right now. People don't realize the power of the message that the old timer needs to think about who's listening to him say these things. So when I had 10 years, that same dude said that thing in a meeting, exactly the way he said it. And I shared right after him. I probably shouldn't have done it. I shared right after him. And I said, he said, "I'm the same sick, selfish son of a bitch as the first day I walked in and I still don't know anything." And I said, "Well, the next time I don't want to know something, I'll look you up." You know, and I had a couple of newcomers come up to me after the meeting and say, "Thanks for doing that." Because we have a duty to say what we need to say in here. And How It Works talks about if you want what we have to offer. And old timers need to make what we have to offer sound good and sound plausible and sound possible and sound positive. Because we may never graduate here, but we don't stay in kindergarten either. So I'm not going to claim I don't know anything, even though everybody in here knows for damn sure if I said I don't know anything, you'd know I was lying. So we do learn things. We never graduate, but we don't stay in kindergarten. So the newcomer needs to know that there's things that can be accomplished, and I will go from one place to the another. I will go from the bedevilments on 52 to the promises on 83. I will become a person that I never thought I wanted to be. I will become the person that on 152 I was laughing to be stupid, boring, and glum. Lifetime consigned to be stupid, boring, and glum like those righteous people. Now I have that life that I would have said was stupid, boring, and glum. That's the kind of transformation that I'm talking about. And 143 talks about to get over serious drinking will take a transformation of thought and attitude. I mean, there's no question about it. If I'm not transforming, I'm going out of here. And I don't want to just sit on my hands and white knuckle it. That's serving a sentence. I think that's because sobriety. And that's not what this is about. So, first beach trip. Let me see what I got. I'm running out of time. I need to skip the first beach trip and get on into attain, maintain. But the quickness about the first beach trip was the first time I did something in recovery that was scary that I used to do while I was drinking out there. Everybody's got to do the first thing. Play the first game of pool. Go to the beach for the first time. If I go over 2 minutes, is anybody going to trip? Okay, because, I get a little squirrely. I got 2 minutes left and I'm supposed, because I got to recap everything. I got to recap what I've said because that's the way I was trained to do it. All right, so you got to do this thing. You got to go to the beach for the first time. You got to play your first game of pool. You got to study the big book with a girl sober the first time. You know what I'm talking about. So all these firsts that have to happen in recovery that I'm not used to doing sober. So we were going to go to the beach. So the first thought was, let's go to Panama City, which is a dumb idea. Right? And the reason I want to tell the story is because what we decided to do was go to Gulf Shores. That's where the grandparents went. But it was a beach, and it was me and my buddy's first time, so we went to Gulf Shores. Okay? So we used a good little common sense there. We did our part. And God rewarded us because when we got there, the Gulf State Park Campground had a big thing on the marquee. It said AA convention this weekend. Now, we didn't know this. We didn't know this, but we went to the AA convention because my first couple of 3 years, I went to CA and NA. I didn't move over to AA because there was old people there and there was more young people there. See what I'm saying? I mean, they dumped me off at the clubhouse the first time. I was like, we think, no, dude, this ain't happening. So the thing about it is that we were rewarded because we used good common sense and God showed up and showed out. And I think that can happen in every aspect of my life. If I do my part and have a pause between impulse and action and think about what I'm doing, then God's going to, because He's not going to reward any bullshit. I'm going to tell you that right now. So let me go into attain, maintain, and then I'm going to end up. When I think about how it works, it talks about no one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. And I didn't get this. It didn't jump off the page to me till I had 20 years. And I thought, and I'd studied the book a lot, as you can probably tell. Every word that Bill chose was chosen carefully. Every word he used was perfect. And he meant what he said. So if he said no one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence, I'll pose you with a question. And you may not really get it till you're driving home, but that's okay. Because it took it a while to sink in on me. He said no one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence. Why didn't he say attain? No one among us has been able to attain anything like perfect adherence. Let me tell you why he didn't say attain. And the promise is actually described in 85. You know, when I think about a perfect day, I think about those questions on 86. Have I been kind and loving toward all? Have I kept something to myself that should have been, have I done this, I've done this? It's a laundry list of questions. And if he was careful about what he said, those are the perfect questions, right? That synopsize an entire life. If he put those questions, they must be the ones that are the litmus test, that summarize everything. Has there ever been a day where I've answered those questions and go, check, I did good, check, did good? Yeah, I've had one of those perfect days. Everybody in here, I bet you has, if you think about it. Yeah, I've had one of those. So when he says no one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence, he's saying you can attain that day, but be careful because you can't maintain it. He's saying it so deep inside the statement that you miss it. He's saying you can. This is not about failure. This is about success. This is about you can do this. This is about you can have that perfect day, but it says you better keep coming back because life's going to show up. It says, don't rest on your laurels. You're headed for trouble if you do, because it's subtle. It ain't going to come at me from the front. It's talking about it's coming at me from the side. And it may be a girl. It may be a job situation. It may be anything you can think of. But if I hadn't gone through my training, if I'm not making that 14 a week, because I don't know which one that is, if I'm not in the center of this thing, If I don't make AA the center of my wagon wheel, I'm just going to make it a spoke. I've done enough of that. I'm just going to make it a spoke. No, if I don't make it the center of my wagon wheel, everything else falls apart. And I think that's something that, I can't expect everybody to just agree with what I said. It's something you got to think about. Is he really saying that we can attain perfect adherence in that one day, but we can't maintain it? I think so. Otherwise, he would have said, you can't ever get it. He would have said, attain. The promise is in the statement. You can have a great day, but keep coming back. You can get all of the colored chips and get your medal, but keep coming back. I want to recap what I've said, because when my dad made me, when I was 16 and 17 years old, he made me go to this group called Toastmasters and sit around with these old men with suits on and learn how to public speak. And he said, and I learned in that thing that people remember two things from any talk you give. They remember what you said in the beginning, and they remember what you said at the end. So my duty is to say, this is what I'm going to say. Then I say it, and then I say what I've just said. So to recap what I've talked about, is I talked about, I digressed on the Altoid for a minute, and we chuckled about that. But then I really talked about the parachute and the reason that the parachute has value, and the thing that I left out, and I'm going to be kicking myself for this later, because the reason I talked about the parachute was to say one simple statement. I can't believe I forgot it. I've done it 100 times. I may not know about parachutes. I may not know about gas stoves, but what I'm here to talk about, I do know about. That's what I was supposed to say right after that. So now it's blown. I might as well drink. Every time I talk, I always say, man, you forgot that. That's stupid. They didn't get nothing just because I forgot that. But that's a lie. So we talked about the parachute, and we talked about the two things from childhood that have applicableness here, that I had an addictive personality, the stickers, and then I was an only child, and just because I came by my selfishness, honestly, it's no reason to just say that's okay. And Dad told me that I fucked up more than I fixed, and I'm not tied to the legacy of some bullshit that I want to tell myself from childhood or use that as a cop-out. The next thing I talked about was the hot sand, and I moved on into, regardless of what I thought was going to happen, I needed some relief. And I talked about how I'd sing the Alcoholics National Anthem and I would drink again because life got too hot because of the greatest enemies. Nervousness, worry, anger, depression, jealousy, envy, frustration, and fear, the feelings of life. And if I'm new, I've got to know that's coming, and I got to double up on my meetings and have me some phone numbers and stick around safe people, because another fellowship talks about my thoughts need to be on my new associations, and that's the damn truth. Because recovery will not rub off by osmosis, but you get around the wrong people, and that will rub off by osmosis. I've got to change a lot of things about my life. I talked about the promises of alcohol, and that's something that really I hope that you go home, get your book out, and read that at that special way. And I think you'll agree with me that that's what alcohol used to do for me, and that's why I kept going back. And unless I get those promises from these steps, I am doomed to go back every time, because my mind is hardwired to remember where it used to get them promises. And I've got to flip the script on those old lies. We talked about the joke of Richard Pryor and the promise to the newcomers that we have what it takes. And it's a fact, because I didn't miss a payment. And if I come in here and not miss a payment, I'm guaranteed success. Guaranteed. Even our book on 55 talks about, with this attitude, you cannot fail. I wish I could take those odds down the street to the Beau Rivage. It's not going to happen. But they give me those odds here. They promise, they tell me if I'm willing to do what it takes, I can have those odds. And I'm here to report, now not having had a drink of alcohol since September 11th, 1987, it's possible. And this is for somebody that liked to drink. And it wasn't because of the taste. I like the taste of Cool Mountain spring water too, but I don't drink a case of the shit. So the thing about it is that I know what the effect was, and I know what I must get here, the effect here. We talked about the first beach trip, and basically we talked about meaning business. We know what that means. I've got to do what my sponsor says. I got to show that I mean business and not kid myself about values. What I talked about was the first beach trip, meaning you got to do all these recovery firsts. But when I do these recovery first, please use good common sense. Get around safe people, and I promise you God will reward you, just like He rewarded us with that convention. But we didn't go to PC. We went to Grandmom's Beach. You see, we played our part and He played His. And the last thing I talked about was attain, maintain, and the thing that has to marinate like a steak on barbecue day. So what is He really saying? And it's so positive, you can't even wrap your head around it. He's saying, yes, you can do this. But here's the warning. Just like everything in the book, there's a promise, but there's a warning. It said the new power flowed in, 46 and 50. This happened wholeheartedly after I met a few simple requirements. It's always there. I just have to look for it. I haven't talked about any war stories purposely. I wanted to talk about things that apply to us in recovery, how recovery is positive, how recovery is possible. And there's always one thing that I end, whether I'm sharing in a meeting or whether I end my talk, there's always one thing that I say. And I think it's important that old timers say this, really wrap your head around this. Because it says in the 12th step, if I've had something, I've got to say something. Because not like that guy that said, I've got 20 years and I still don't know anything and I'm the same sick, selfish son of a bitch. I mean, what kind of dude is that? I mean, that ain't my message. I mean, if that's true, if these old timers, if that's all they got, we need to take a flamethrower to this place. But it's not. We're not the same people. And the message is, if I've had something, I must say it. So I'm going to end with this. It's the same sentence I say whether I share or in my talk. It's absolutely crucial. I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, and I'll pass.